I decided to throw on my Savage Patrick hat that I just got like a week ago for this video for whatever reason. I don't know, it's TVB. And here is the second out of three end of the year countdown videos I plan on making. And guys, I've been waiting a really long time to make this video. Like, trust me, I really have. Ever since I decided to make movie reviewing like a big part of my channel, heck, even before that, like, before I even started reviewing movies, like, I really want to make this video, because I remember back in 2014, I made this really shitty video where, 15-year-old Vitas was counting down his top 10 favorite movies of the 2000s, and I knew that wouldn't be an appropriate time to make my picks for the best movies of the decade until 2020, when the decade finally came to a close. But now is finally the time to do it. 2020 is here, a new decade is upon us, and 2030, assuming that YouTube is still a thing by then, I'll be making my top 10 movies of the 2020s. But tonight, I'm going to rank my top 9 favorite movies of the 2010s. Like, some of these films, guys, are honestly some of my favorite movies of all time. And this may or may... I'm itchy. Sorry, hat. You gotta come off, buddy. Post-shower head itchiness. Oh, it's killing me. This was not an easy list for me to make. Like, I had a solid idea of what my top 7 is for a while, but my number 8 and 9 spots, I was like really indecisive over what like film deserves, or what films I should say deserve those 2 spots. So anyway, guys, strap in, because there are a lot of honorable mentions. The How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, Inception, the Planet of the Apes trilogy, The Hunger Games, the new Star Wars trilogy, Thor, The Hobbit trilogy, 12 Years a Slave, Jackass 3, This Is the End, Guardians of the Galaxy, Gone Girl, Despicable Me, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Deadpool, Wreck-It Ralph, Arrival, Zootopia, Captain America Civil War, Wonder Woman, Get Out, The Disaster Artist, Logan, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Ready Player One, Joker, A Star is Born, Long Shot, Birdman, Captain Phillips, Hell or High Water, Straight Outta Compton, and Sorry to Bother You. Oh boy. All those are really fantastic movies, and I was honestly tempted to make a top 20 movies of 2010s video, but I know, just for the sake of time, I decided to make it just a top 9 like what I usually do. And yeah, we're gonna take a big stroll down memory lane over some of the best like films that came out this decade. Number 9 spot goes to Whiplash. Best movie 2014, honestly. For a while I was saying it was Birdman, because the cinematography of that movie, it's like, this best movie 2014 was a very like close call between Whiplash and Birdman. But when I was making this list, when I was thinking about like, oh, what films that I've seen over the past like 10 years, what are the films that like I remember the most, like that I what are the films that really stood out to me that were unique and like interesting? And I have to say Whiplash was definitely up there, because Damien Chazelle's direction was just so perfect. Like, everything about this movie is just flawless. Like, it's so intense and it's so gripping. I was at the edge of my seat and my jaw dropped and my eyes were like bug-eyed open. Like, oh my gosh, it just happened. Like, I remember my friend and I seeing this movie, like, when we were still in high school. We were so dumbfounded. J.K. Simmons, I am, like, one of the most deserving Oscar wins of my time, for sure. Like, he snagged the gold for Best Supporting Actor, and I couldn't be happier for that. Just, Whiplash is such a masterpiece, start to finish, and the music, the sound editing, like, everything is just so spot on. And Miles Teller, his career arguably has had some highs and its lows, but this was, like, at his peak. Like, this is, like, peak Miles Teller, as well as performance and the dialogue, and just, like, the evil teacher, just played by J.K. Simmons, just doing his thing was just so, oh my gosh, there's really no other film like this, and I'm excited to see what Damien Chazelle plans on doing next. Number 8! On a more lighthearted note, this is my pick for the second best comedy of the decade. More on the first one later. That, my friends, is 21 Jump Street. Like, again, 21 Jump Street was like probably the comedy of the decade. Like there were a few contenders for this. Like Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg are legends. Did I even work on this movie? Hold on for just a second.
3 hours later.
Oh, never mind. I'm sorry, guys. 21 Jump Street was directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. This was like the adaptation of like an 80s or 90s TV series. I heard that this movie doesn't follow the TV show it's based on like at all, but that's completely fine in my book because Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill both nailed it with these roles. This film just cracks me up every time I watch it. It's so hilarious, and the action scenes, it's like an action buddy cop comedy about guys that go back to high school. There's really nothing else like this. You see these guys just going about their lives, sort of like reliving their youth, I guess you could say. It's like, because Channing Tatum's character was, the cool kid in high school, while Jonah Hill's character wasn't, but now the roles are reversed, and you see them sort of living out their roles, and also balance out the heartfelt and dramatic moments as well. It's not just like constant raunch fest like other comedies that I've seen over the years. Like this film really does take the time to balance out comedy, action, romance, and a few dramatic scenes here and there. Just 21 Jump Street is like such a fantastic movie, guys. And honestly, 22 Jump Street was a great film as well. I'm kind of bummed out that they haven't made a 23 Jump Street. If they decided, I know they made that whole joke in the credits of 22 Jump Street, but honestly, I wouldn't be mad about that at all if they did that.
No! Number 7.
All right, my number 7 spot. This, my friends, goes to Life of Pi. 2012, out of all the years that I've been alive in, I think 2012 was the best for movies. Like, I was born in 1998, and like, I know most people say like, 1994 was the best year for film, and I can understand that, but like, out of all the films that I've been alive to see in, like 2012 I've been that, because even with 21 Jump Street, it's not the last film from that year that's gonna be on this list. Just a little spoiler for you guys. And Life of Pi, Ang Lee's direction is like so flawless. It's beautiful. Like the CGI, like honestly, when I watch this movie, I completely forget that this whole film was made with a pie just sitting on like green screen all surrounding him. You really feel like he's stuck on a lifeboat with this tiger surrounded by nothing but ocean. Just the animals look, and the scenery just looks so real despite it all being CGI. Totally deserve the Oscar for best special effects, and the soundtrack is gorgeous, and it's heartbreaking, and I love the relationship that Pi forms with the tiger, and it's like you do have to suspend disbelief, but at the same time you just gotta like applaud when like you see dolphins jumping around, and like and you see Pi like writing in his little notebook as the pen is like slowly deteriorating, and like the survival aspect is there, and the whale breaches and splashes all of Pi's stuff. It's like, I needed to like hide the rations better, like idiot. Like, it's just so great, and I really should get on reading the book at some point. Like, I'm like the worst English major ever. Like, I'm studying English, but I haven't read too many of these classic novels that have been adapted into films over years, and that's kind of egregious. I should totally like give the book a read at some point by Jan Martel. But yeah, Life of Pi is one of my favorites.
Number 6!
I'd say my 6th favorite movie of the decade is The Wolf of Wall Street. One of my highlights of my freshman year of high school, because this movie was released back in 2013. This film came out like 2 months after I started making like YouTube videos, actually. My friends and I, we bought tickets to seeing Walking with Dinosaurs around New Year's Eve, right? And I asked my parents, like, hey, Mom, Dad, can I see The Wolf of Wall Street? And they're like, oh, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Jonah Hill? Sure. So we saw the movie, 3 hours. The four of us just had like an absolute blast. And then my parents saw the movie by themselves like a few like weeks later, and my mom was like, Vitas, if we knew how like raunchy that movie was, we wouldn't have let you seen it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this movie is just, I know it's very exaggerated. I know it's like inspired off true story with, Jordan Belfort being the Wolf of Wall Street. I know there probably wasn't nearly as much porn or crack involved and all this, but that's what makes this film memorable. It's just like, it's hilarious, and it's dark, and it's really twisted, and I think it broke the record for most F-word usage in a single movie, and there's a lot of like sex scenes and whatnot, but at the same time, it's like, you can't help but root for Jordan Belfort, who's played so excellently by Leonardo DiCaprio, like, during his whole endeavors, and I think not only does this film make me laugh and grip me, like, for the 3 hour runtime, and yeah, this film was definitely memorable with its R rating, but like, there's something hauntingly realistic, because it's like, this is what like greed does to people. It's like when you work in that job, you're making that much money. It's like, oh, I made $47 million one year, which really pissed me off because it's just shy of $1 million a week. Why gotta be worried about it? See, when I saw Wolf of Wall Street, when we walked out of the theater, that was a day that I promised myself I would never let money get the best of me. Like, if I'm ever disgustingly rich one day, viewers, I'm not gonna live in a mansion. Or like, because if you have that much money at your disposal, like you would probably be wasting it all on like drugs and hookers as well. But I promised myself a while ago that if I'm ever like disgustingly rich, I would rather spend that money on a small house and a giant backyard and open like an animal sanctuary, or just grow trees, or have a little swimming pool and a bonfire pit, something like that. Focus on being more environmentally conscious. Again, that's just my thing. Like, if you make that sort of money one day, do what you want with it. It's fine with me. But like, Wolf of Wall Street, like it really like stuck with me as a 15-year-old, and it still sticks with me to this day. And I'm really thrilled that was not her best picture that year. And Leonardo DiCaprio should have been like not won acting Oscars long before The Revenant, guys. I mean that sincerely. We are moving into my top 5, and my 5th favorite movie of this decade. This is my pick for the best animated film of the 2010s, and that, my friends, is Toy Story 3. This is the third of 3 animated films to receive an Oscar nomination for Best Picture. First one being Beauty and the Beast, which was back in 1991, and Up, another Pixar film, which was released just a year before that, in 2009. And then we had Toy Story 3 in 2010. And I wonder, start of the decade and end of the decades, we get animated movies nominated for Best Picture. So what if, either in 2020 or maybe in 2029, we see another animated movie that receives an Oscar nomination for Best Picture? That would be really sweet. I think animation really doesn't get the credit that it deserves, and Toy Story 3 is just Pixar's absolute best. It's yeah, I love Toy Story 4, but Toy Story 3 just concludes the whole story arc between Woody and Buzz and the rest of the toy gang so beautifully, and the ending where Andy passes down the toys to Molly is just, oh my gosh, my heart breaks. And makes me cry tears of joy every time I watch it, or makes me want to cry tears of joy at least. And you see, growing up is a huge theme here, and you see him escape from the evil daycare Sunnyside. Lotso was such a great villain in all this, and the dialogue, the score by Randy Newman, and the ending when they're almost incinerated, then the aliens rescue him with the grappling thing. They're just the claw. Oh, this film really makes me laugh, and it's so quotable as well. I cannot wait for Onward and Soul when that comes out in the spring, because Pixar is just the king of this kind of stuff, guys. My 4th favorite movie of the 2010s. I was really considering not including Endgame in my top 5, because I didn't want there to be too many comic book movies in my top 5 at first, because, well, spoilers, it's not the last comic book movie to appear on this list. But, still, Endgame is now the highest grossing movie of all time, and I'm still baffled by that. That it still, succeeded, all our expectations, and, we had the bar set so high for it, and it just went right through the roof. Thanos, played by Josh Brolin, is my favorite, MCU villain. That term gets... I throw that word around a lot, but it's it used to be Loki for a while, but no, Thanos is such a layered and complex villain, and you're actually satisfied when he is, has his downfall at the end of this film. And just this film's ending is so perfect, where everyone just assembles. It's one of my favorite action scenes of all time, and the action, the comedy, the visual effects, the score, the drama, the heartbreaking moments. Just Endgame is just again, it managed to be everything I wanted it to be when I was anticipating it, and it was more than that. I really love this film 3000, and boy, what would I give to see Stan Lee's reaction if he, lived long enough to see his film be dropped in theaters. Rest in peace. Yeah, rest in peace, man. Happy belated 97th birthday, Stan Lee. And Endgame is just almost the cream of the crop with MCU films, and there will never be a film like this again, guys. Believe me when I say that. But at the same time, here comes my third favorite movie of the 2010s. Now we're getting to like my top 10 like favorite movies of all time. Right here, like the following three movies are in like my top 10 like favorites of all time. Like I made my top 5 video a few years ago with my sister, but like I haven't made like my top 10. So like my 10 through 6 is like these two, like some of these films are in like that list. But anyway, my third favorite movie of 2010s is The Dark Knight Rises. This and Toy Story 3 and Return of the Jedi and Return of the King are like the how-to guides to end like a cinematic trilogy. Like The Dark Knight Rises, Christopher Nolan's direction at its absolute best, and Bane, played by Tom Hardy. Oh my gosh, this is my favorite Tom Hardy performance, and it solidified me on my stance that Tom Hardy is one of my favorite actors because Bane is like, he's so big and buff and has an accent. He's so memorable. It's like, oh, I was born in the darkness. Oh, he's so quotable. Christian Bale's conclusion and the whole Batman like trilogy was just excellent. Like the actions are excellent. Hans Zimmer's score is excellent. Like I remember seeing this movie in theaters with my sister when I was like in middle school, and you know it was a late night showing, so I was kind of sleepy, but like I had to watch this movie multiple times on DVD to remember everything that happens. And yeah, I was just like, yes, I love this movie so much. I really wish a DCEU was more like this nowadays, but you know what, they're starting to learn their lessons. And I'm more hopeful for like the future of DC films, but it's like, you know, and overall I'd say Marvel movies are generally speaking superior to DC movies, but like the Dark Knight trilogy is at one mountain that Marvel may not be ever able to climb.
Okay.
So guys, my second favorite movie of this decade, and again, this is like best movies of all time material that I'm talking about right here. My second favorite movie is Deathly Hallows Part 2, the conclusion to the epic like 8 movie Harry Potter like film saga. Like Deathly Hallows Part 2, I'm honestly not too sure which like Harry Potter film I love more, this or Chamber of Secrets, because Chamber of Secrets is my favorite Harry Potter movie as a kid, but like Deathly Hallows Part 2 is like really like neck and neck up there because it's such a powerful conclusion to this movie. Like I remember when I first watched it like in middle school, I left the theater, I almost wanted to cry because of just how amazing it was and just how it just tied all the loose ends together with Harry and Ron and Hermione and Ginny and Professor Snape, and how they're destroying the Horcruxes and going around and, you know, just having to save the Wizarding Realm from Lord Voldemort. Just and that wizard duel with Harry and Voldemort just at the end, and like Voldemort was disintegrating before Thanos rolled in to snap him out of existence, and just like the action scenes are so like amazing, and the magic and the wizarding. Like fantasy is a dying genre, and it really upsets me to see that because like fantasy started dipping after Harry Potter and The Hobbit, and I really have like those films to thank for keeping the genre alive while it still could. And I really hope that we see a bouncing back of like great like, you know, fantasy films, you know, soon. I think Onward could do that, but like we'll see what happens, I guess. Now, guys, we've made it. Here is my favorite movie of the 2010s. And remember how I said with Dark Knight Rises and Deathly Hallows Part 2, these are like in my top 10? This is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And if you've seen my top 5 favorite movies of all time video, which is like over 5 years old now, jeez, I'm getting old. Like way back in high school, I made that video, put this in that list, and I still rest my case to this day on this being like, you know, my favorite movie of 2010s. And that, guys, is The Avengers from 2012. Yes, I know Endgame may be bigger and more like epic and like just the epic conclusion, but like, guys, nostalgia is real with Avengers. I know most people say that like, though, their favorite MCU movie is Civil War or Winter Soldier or Infinity War, Endgame, or somebody even say like Black Panther or Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's fine, you're entitled to your opinion. But this is like my favorite MCU movie because it was the epic mashup that it could be at the time, and there's such a charm to that you just can't get anywhere else. And Joss Whedon, every time I watch this movie, I just want to hug him for like making this epic masterpiece. And like you see the shot with them all in New York, the tower surrounding them, and the score is just blaring. You see Hulk, Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, Hawkeye, and Black Widow just, getting ready to, just slay them all and work together as a team. And before that, they don't get along and they're bickering and arguing, and that's natural. That's what it should be. The dialogue between all these characters is just excellent. The humor when it's needed is excellent, and just it's so well made. And it was the highest grossing movie of 2012. Again, that is my pick for best year for movies out of all the years I've been alive to see movies. And that's just, it's my pick for, it still is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And it's my pick for best movie of this decade, and my favorite comic book movie, and my favorite action movie. Just, again, that's all pretty redundant, but you guys know what I'm saying. I love the Avengers, and I will for the rest of my life. Oh my gosh, I think part of my teenage spirit now that I've made this video is finally at peace right now, because again, I've been waiting years to make this video. If you've been sticking around for the end of this, well, thank you so much for watching this. That means a lot, guys. Trust me when I say that. And if you're new to this channel, subscribe to my channel, please. And here's to another 10 amazing years for cinema and movie reviewing and YouTubing and all that good stuff, guys. My name's TV9, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.